Black, Poetic G. Beautiful love always carries knowledge.
Good evening, ladies and gents. I'm King George. I'm the owner of T.Y.I Productions. I am the curator of Black 31 magazine. Tonight, I am on the line with one of the great people from the community, another community guest. This brother right here is an artist. This brother is a podcaster. This brother is a planner of 312 Ministries.
That's right.
This brother is overall a good brother. So we're going to get into the special things about this brother, his artistry, the different things that he do, and we're gonna have fun with it. So can we give it up? Without further ado, can we please give it up for the brother Adam Sr.? Let's go.
Hey, thank you so much for that intro, man. Just praise God for just making this all happen.
Absolutely, man. Not a problem, man. Listen, man, not a problem. I'm glad to have you on. Let's get right into it. Adam Sr., the artistry.
Yeah.
But before we dive into the artistry, how did Adam Sr. grow up? How did you grow up?
That is a great question, man. I'll say I grew up in New Hope, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Two very loving parents. They protected me. You know, they gave me a great home, and was blessed with a good education. You know, opportunity to go to college, but like I struggled with academia so much.
Okay.
And you know, I'll say like for most of my life, my memory, you know, I played basketball. That was kind of my main thing. I was playing intramural basketball, which actually is a song of mine I have out with that same title. Played golf. But in terms of just like having goals in life, I felt kind of very aimless. Like when it was kind of time to go to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to study, and I chose to go for phys ed because I thought it was easy.
Okay.
And when I got there, it just wasn't, and I didn't really not have the aptitude for science, and part of that was like studying, health. So I needed like to study biology, and it just I didn't have the mind for school. But around that time, I did have the mind. Just hip hop just came into my life, and that's like I started writing so much, but I wasn't ready. And so like the traditional path just wasn't for me quite, and music just like fell into my lap, but I needed to be molded into an artist.
Yes.
And then that was always just kind of a tension. So it was like growing up, such a great childhood. By the time I got to college, I just completely fell on my face, had no idea what to do with my life. Ended up working a retail job at Home Depot, figuring some things out, enrolled back in school. And then, just college years, it was just like really difficult for me to figure myself out. But like, as I kept growing, just music just kept getting better and better, until I started to kind of find my authentic voice, like right around COVID, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
And how special is hip hop for you, and why do you love hip hop so much?
Yeah, I think it for me, hip hop is a voice to the voiceless. And when I was in school, I was bullied a lot.
Okay.
And hip hop was that thing that just allowed me to navigate my depression and anxiety and issues around shame and things like that. And I'll say like I fell in love with hip hop when I first heard Kanye West, and I think he was just someone that was so authentic, and he just changed the game. I think in terms of like, it doesn't have to be like street stuff to be a rapper. It can be about just your life. And I think like from there, that was definitely an inspiration, and just something that really resonated with me throughout just my formative years, from like end of high school and through college and up. And I think like I just fell in love with the craft. It was the only thing that actually encouraged me to just grow my knowledge too. You know, like I think like hip hop teaches knowledge of self. Yeah. And so I think like I would not be where I'm at without just journeying along my love of hip hop for so many years.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And just to hear that, because I heard that you mentioned something, right? And how did the time of you, experiencing that trauma of, like, being bullied as a younger kid, right? How did that transform me? How did that transform into adulthood? How were you able to overcome that mentally?
Yeah. I'll say ultimately I overcame it, I think, actually probably last November, kind of just being saved by Jesus, where I think so much of my desires, even in hip hop, like it's in my music. Like I think I've always been so authentic with just what I'm experiencing. But I think a lot of my desires behind what I did in my life was this desire to just fit in. I cared way more about what people thought than I think what God thought. And that caught up with me. And I think, like, if I was really putting God first in my life, like that desire to fit in wouldn't have been so strong. But I think getting bullied by who I got bullied from, I just wanted to fit in with that like crowd, which was I think that like they drank alcohol and smoked weed and partied, and I thought like, okay, what my thought was, this is happening to me because I'm not cool enough.
Yeah.
So let me try to be cool versus let me just try to please God, and kind of walk my path, walk my lane. It was a lot of me just trying to go into different people's lane to see if I could find happiness, and never did. All I found was emptiness.
Yes. Yes. So many heavy jewels. So many heavy jewels. And how did music help you go through that therapeutic process?
Yeah, I mean that's ultimately. I used to say like hip hop saves. I think ultimately it's God who saves. But I'll say like I did think God gave me just music as a way to just sort out those emotions. I know Kanye was definitely one of them. I think Drake at a time was one of them. Just in terms of giving me like the motivation and the confidence in certain stuff. Just even going to the gym and listening to Drake. I think that G-Eazy, I know, was just an artist that like it was more just people talking about, I think, like mental health in their music that were like really struggling. I know like Logic had a song about like suicide awareness, things like that.
Yeah.
But then and then there's one album though. Music, I love all music.
Yes.
There's actually this one artist. His name was James Morrison. He has an album called Undiscovered. And I just remember like after I really fell my first year of college, I was just listening to that album on repeat and just crying to it for like a couple months. And honestly, there's been no like record like that, like where I just like I think listening to it just makes me like want to cry. But that definitely was just like I want to make music that makes you feel. And so I would say like I try to just listen to music that makes me feel and I think anything with soul to it is just always just makes me think more about life and just I'm able to just analyze life, I think, from an artist's lens, which I think is like whatever I go through, at least I can write about it and maybe help others. And that's what music I think always does for me is like if you're just being authentic with it, like it's going to help someone, even if it's just one person, and that's enough.
That's the truth. That's the truth. That's true. That's true. How important, right? How important is how important is it to make the right connections when it comes to expanding your music?
How important is it to make the right connections? I would say that's the most important. I think if you make the wrong connections, I mean, they have that, it's the saying, right? It's like you are who you hang out with.
Yes.
And so I think like if you have the right connections around you, like I think they can fill some of the parts of they can they can bring strengths to your weaknesses more so. And I'll say just having the right connections, which I think is like not having a right connection with someone just because they're really good at what they do, but I think it's just who is that person you can call when you're going through it.
Yes.
I'll say like I since being saved in November, I have just a great brotherhood of just men around me, and just being discipled in such a great way. I
Absolutely.
was hanging out with one of my friends. His name is Caton, Cayton. We
Yes.
just I hopped on a song with him called Benediction.
Yes.
And I think it's like that's in the past. I think I would have been like, oh, it'd be so amazing, like just to hop on the song for all the like the exposure. But for me, it was like this was just such an act of service to do that, and I think it's just approaching life together with just brothers, regardless of the outcome. It's just a solid foundation of people to grow in life with, and then
Yes.
doing encouraging the stuff you love.
Yeah.
It's like I think that's all that's really matters. I think in terms of just being well connected, it's just being well connected with people that are human and care about you. And so I say if you don't have that, then I think it's like you don't have a solid foundation.
Absolutely. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. And also what I want to know, I want to dive right into it. How did you get into podcasting, becoming an interviewer?
Yeah. So before I started my first podcast, it was called the Hip Hop Self Podcast. I started that in COVID. I was listening to interviews all the time, probably for like at least 4 years. It started with listening to like Breakfast Club interviews,
Okay.
with Charlamagne the God and
Absolutely.
DJ Envy, which were always so great.
Yeah.
And then when I learned about podcasting, I was just hooked, and I would always just listen to interview ones. Like I just think, particularly if it was artists I liked, I would just want to hear more about their backstory.
Yeah.
And there was one podcast which was absolutely phenomenal. It's no longer available, but it was called Get Up on This.
Okay.
And the guy that he did the interviews for the show. I just never saw someone ask such great questions. And I was like always thinking about being interviewed, but I never actually thought about being the person interviewing. Until I started podcasting myself, which I realized, what I was visioning was just this. I like coming on, talking about life, hearing people's origin story. Actually, like I feel weirder way being interviewed than being in the interview seat. So like it's rare that I get to do this. But I'll say like it made me realize like, I'm listening to this because I love it. I love just the rhythm of a good interview.
Yes.
And I just devoted hours and hours to try to figure out kind of how to produce an interview like a song. There's a rhythm to conversation. And sometimes I think a little bit too much about that. Like, is this sounding good? But I think, to me, I approach conversation as much as I can as an art. But also, you just got to be real and just let the conversation be whatever it needs to be. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I'll say like I just caught the bug listening to a bunch of podcasts, and then I think by the grace of God was encouraged to start my own.
I like that. I like that. That's wonderful, man. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I see that, man. You always must become a student of the craft
Yeah.
before you can even think about even being a teacher or just continuing that craft. You got to become that student first. So, man, yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing, brother. Love what you're doing, man. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And just to get into a more serious note,
Sure.
what is 312 Ministries all about?
Yeah, so that was inspired by Colossians 3:12, which is a verse from the Bible, which says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience."
Okay.
And yeah, I say like planter of this because like I do want it to be a true ministry that's of service to people outside of just the conversational space. But when the last podcast I was doing, which was specifically hip hop specific, was I was trying to make it like a philosophical type of conversations for hip hop artists, kind of like when Joe Rogan would have a hip hop artist on. My thought was, let me try to just make it feel like that, you know, so I can offer wisdom to like the things I listen to, like just I think that inform my art. I was like, I want to bring more of that to this, so then rather than just have it be like a Breakfast Club interview where it's more about the art, I wanted to just do more in depth of like who's the person behind the artist more. And that whole show was about trying to find your authentic self as well. And when I heard this verse, I was like, okay, when it comes to just conversation, I think that's the energy we need to bring to it, particularly with such a divisive culture around us. Like, I think as long as they're going into conversation with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, you can't go wrong, you know, unless the other person is just not coming in with that same energy. But I find if you're going in with that energy, it really calms a lot of people, particularly if they're really angry about a certain topic. But so far, I haven't had any interview like that.
Yeah.
But I think my biggest skill is usually like just being very calm, and that seems to calm a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Creating a safe space matters. And that's the main thing, man. People love to feel comfortable. Most importantly, they love when you're a good listener. And listen, folks, I was on the show last night. This brother was an excellent listener. We had an excellent conversation, and it was wonderful. So, man, I enjoyed it. So I say, man, continue.
Yeah, man. Yeah, as long as God allows, I'll keep continuing for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, our episode should be out tomorrow, so I can't wait for people to see that.
Absolutely, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it so much. Absolutely. How do you feel? How do you feel about the current state of America right now and as we speak?
Yeah, great question. I think I'll say my biggest, takeaway from America right now, and I think the reason I do what I do, I think is to solve a lot of depression in America. And I think, to me, the underlying reason why most people are so depressed and hopeless is because I think more and more institutionally we're removing God, I think, from our mindset. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that adds to our flourishing. I think that only leads to just more divisiveness. And I think sometimes it just seems like, I think there's a true enemy out there that tries to destroy, truth. And I think it's just, I think an important question to ask ourselves as people is, what is truth? And I think the pursuit of it, I think, has been very lost. I think in terms of just how many things distract us that only add to kind of just making our life more comfortable. I think it's easy to get distracted when we're living kind of just a very comfortable life, and not to say comfort's a bad thing, but I think in terms of just like only watching, and this was me at a time, like only watching Netflix and only like being in your small circle. It's like you got to go out there and live. You got to take more leaps of faith. And I think a lot of people just want things to stay as they are and are uncomfortable with change. And I think it's accepting what happens to them, and I think changing our response to it, and putting just the armor of God on all of us, I think, in terms of just handling the suffering that is real. But I think sometimes we add to our own suffering the more we distance ourselves from God. And I think we need to at least talk about God more. Even if you don't believe in him, I think it's just essential to our well-being to at least talk about them. And
Yes.
because I think like as technology just gets more and more advanced, and we aren't reading as much and conversing as much, and talking about hard issues, talking about politics
Yes.
and gender, and just being like, and just questioning, like we should be allowed to question and have a civil discord with each other. And it seems like that just isn't happening as much. And so I feel like I hear people in circles say like, oh, I won't even talk about politics or religion. It's just like, let's just not talk about it. Okay, well then things won't change
Yes.
if we don't talk about it. So maybe it's just we have to change our energy around it, of how we talk with each other, knowing that ultimately the most important thing is God.
Yeah.
And maybe if we just follow him more, like we'll be more at peace.
Yes.
Because all I know is that until I started following God, like I've never been more at peace. And that's the peace I want everyone to have.
Yes.
And I want to share that with everyone, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Nothing like it. Nothing like it at all. And Brother Adam, I'm glad you mentioned something about technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
How detrimental is technology for the minds of young youth right now?
Mm-hmm.
And also, on the flip side, how beneficial is new technology for the minds of young youth now?
That's a deep one. It could be a whole, I think, episode on just that. But I'll say, like, there's a new technology that I found a benefit of, which is ChatGPT. And I'll sometimes use it to just fix, like, grammar mistakes,
Yes.
or to, like, work like cover letters if I'm looking, like, for, like, a specific job. And, you know, it's very useful. It's an amazing writing tool. You can just plug in a prompt, and it can write like a whole book for you, and that is really impressive. I think though what it takes away is just the 10, like how long it took me to become an artist and be like a master at my craft.
Yes.
It that kind of shortens that window where you just don't get to and this is what technology does. I think it's just like, I think even just like McDonald's, you know, fast food. You know, before that existed, like people cooked their own meals, right? Or like farm their own food. And I think those are valuable tasks, you know, and it's like you can still go out there and do it. But I think the more you remove like human labor from things, I think we just lose our soul. We lose our purpose. So it's like if we just have technology doing everything around us,
Yes.
We don't get to have the journey of learning something hard and have a sense of accomplishment for doing something hard.
Yes.
And that, again, I just think that takes away the soul of, because it's like, what are you going to do? Like, if you're not able to work because everything's just being done for you, what type of life is that? I think, to me, I see that becomes just the life of like the movie Idiocracy, where it's just people are only watching stuff to be entertained and to have immediate gratification with things. So it's like, I can see the benefit of it for like, if you're not an artist and you want to just use it. But if you have a desire to be something and you're taking shortcuts, well, that's going to only ruin like your life later down the road. So I think for like youth, it's just, hey, like if you want to write a paper and you want to take a shortcut, just know like down the road, if you're using like a technology to do it for you and you're not actually putting the work in yourself, you'll never be a good writer. And maybe you were meant to be one, but you didn't because you weren't willing to put the hours in because there was an easier way to do it. So I think it's kind of just having the awareness of, if I want to accomplish something, let me learn how to really do it the hard way.
Yes. Absolutely. And I got a question. Should all men care about their mental health?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say, though, first and foremost, I think almost spiritual health first. And then I think that can inform mental health.
Okay.
But I think, like, if you're going through something, yeah, I highly recommend going to counseling, and just talking to someone.
Yes.
I think for me now, it's like more Christian counseling. I think, like, regardless of like also what you believe, I just think a holistic approach to mental health only makes sense.
Yes.
Just because it's like, I think if you're only attacking just the mental, it's like, well, there's other components to it. Like, I think it's, if you're going to like a psychiatrist and like you're going to, you have depression and then they just give you medication for it, you might not actually be fixing the root of the problem. You might just be putting a Band-Aid on it. So I think like it's important, again, just I think just the emphasis of just bringing God back in our lives. I'll just say, like, for me, someone who's struggled with anxiety, depression, ADHD, and I think just kind of following God's word more has relieved so much of that, in terms of just giving me the stillness to worry about my life day to day, not so much about the future and my past regrets. Knowing that I'm forgiven for my sins, like, is such a load off. And I think there's a Bible verse that says, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for today has enough struggles of its own." And to me, I love that. But if you really believe that, it's like so many people, I think, are just so worried about stuff they did in the past and like feel shame around it. And there's a
Yes.
lot of, certainly there's people that have experienced so much trauma, and that's really hard. All the more reason, I think, to turn to God through that. And I think that gives you an enormous amount of strength and stillness to handle a lot of mental health issues. But not to say, if you're like someone that maybe is bipolar or something like that, it's like, yeah, you need medical help, and it is there, and God's allowing it for you to get help. So highly recommend everyone, men and women, to seek mental health resources if you feel like that's something you're struggling with.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. And to tell this to the people, to the world, how much do you love the Creator?
Oh, my heart, man. I would not be here without him. I feel like words don't even can even express actually like how much I do love God.
Yes.
And sometimes I feel like I don't tell him that enough, how much I love him for the life he's given me.
Yes.
But I'll say, like, yeah, he has my heart, and I know he has mine. And that's the only reason I have peace today. And so, yeah, and that's the first commandment, right? Love God with all your heart and love thy neighbor, or the greatest commandment, rather.
Absolutely.
Love God with all your heart, love thy neighbor, and love people as you love yourself. And yeah, if you truly love God, I think so much peace comes around you.
Yes, absolutely, man. That's amazing, man. That's amazing. That's amazing. So many gems, man. I love it. I love it. And before we wrap up, right? This is something I always got to ask the guests. What advice do you have for the young brother that's striving, that wants to be an artist, that want to be possibly a podcaster, that also wants to possibly, I wouldn't say possibly, I would say for sure wants to get into the ministries and the side of following God? What do you have to say to the young brother that's just growing up? What do we need to stay focused? What do we need to stay grounded in his religion and his beliefs, and to just knowing he is the man, and what does he need to do to be successful?
Sure. I would say the thing that comes to mind is a verse. I forget. I'm pretty sure it's in a Psalm. I think it's Psalm, might be 16. I might have that wrong. But I'd say, like, when it comes to things we're striving for in certain crafts, I think it's the thing that really resonates with me, that's given me a lot of patience. So I'd say, first, patience with whatever desires you have. Like, God will allow it, but like you do have to make sure you are putting him
Yeah.
first. But I would say make those plans. It's like there's going to be a lot of failure down the road. I've
Yeah.
experienced so much, and it's just like I'm coming back to this with just whatever happens, happens.
Yes.
Sure way to not happening is not working on it. So keep working on whatever it is that you love, that you're passionate about,
Yes.
but let God control the outcome of it. And so I would say to that, from going back to the Psalm verse, is just plan in your heart, but let the Lord establish your steps.
That's heavy. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. That's true words from a man of wisdom. I love that. I love that, man. Listen, brother, we appreciate you so much. And where can the people find you at?
Yes. So my personal page, it's much ad do, like much Adam do, much ad do about something. And then definitely please check out 312 Ministries, which is spelled out the word 3, the word 12 Ministries on Instagram. And you'll see our episode we did together on YouTube, which is where all my episodes are out now, which I think you'll be episode 6, which is, I definitely want to celebrate for 10 episodes. So we're almost there.
Okay, absolutely. 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 So let's give it up, man. Let's give it up for Brother Adam Sr. Let's go.
Thank you, George.
Listen, go follow the brother on Instagram. Just like he said, he has so many different things that this brother is doing just creatively. I met this brother at the Black Reserve bookstore. It was the delight to meet the brother, and just to be surrounded by so many books and knowledge. It was good that we met, and we met like on a true, genuine note, man. So always, man, much love and respect. Always, people, don't forget to follow the brother. This brother is doing amazing things. Tap into the podcast. Tap into 312 Ministries. Tap into everything that this brother is doing. Tap into the music. This brother got some good music on YouTube too. I mean, some very good music. I mean, some conscious music. I mean, listen, I was amazed. So listen, brother, thank you so much for tapping into Black 31 each and every week, y'all. Please tap in. We will have some of the most amazing guests each and every week. We could have your favorite artist, your favorite poet, favorite singer. We could have the lady down the street with the lemonade stand. We could have you. So please tap in each and every week. We are the platform of truth, the home of the champions, and the place where we uplift man, woman, and child. Peace and love, y'all.
Hey, peace. God bless you. Yeah.
Peace, man. Love you, brother. Peace.
Love you too, brother.
Invested in the people, so I highly stress it. Pay attention, train your mind. During these times, we need more education, not incarceration, to elevate from negativity at all costs. Knowledge and power. Remember, this game's spilled, given. Embrace it. T.Y.I, Poetic G. Peace and love, one. I love it.